fellow Blender Maniacs, this is Alex Cordbard here. Welcome to part 2 of the Cupcake tutorial. So, if you haven't seen part 1, what are you doing here? Go back to part 1 and check it out. It's where we make this awesome looking cupcake here. In this part 2, we're going to see how to add textures, materials, and lighting and finishing up our scene. So, without any further gibbering and jabbering, let's get right to it. We're first going to go to one of my favorite websites. No, not my website, although I like that one too. We're going to go to textures.com. The first thing that we're going to be texturing is the cupcake itself. And for that texture, we're actually going to use a bread texture, believe it or not. Yes, so search for bread. And the texture that we're going to be using is this one right here, this fluffy looking loaf of bread. That makes for a nice cupcake. Now, the image textures that you're going to download is the albedo and the normal map. So go ahead and download those. Just make sure that you download the same size on either of them. All right, cool. Now, going back to Blender. And again, textures.com is a free site. You just need to create an account to download the textures, but it's well worth it. Going over here, let's select the cupcake, which is this right here. And actually, it's looking more like a pancake right now because I forgot to do one simple little thing in the first part. So going into edit mode, let's alt right click this edge loop or vertex loop here. And going into front view, 1 on the numpad. Let me turn on my screencast key for you guys too. E to extrude, Z, bring it down, and then S to scale it in. And just bring it in there and then scale it up and something like that. So that now you have an actual cupcake looking thing. I'm also going to alt right click this part right here, scale that up a little bit, and maybe this one up a tiny bit as well. All right, cool. Now let's go ahead, add a material to this. New. We're going to change this to principled shader. This is a shader that put all the other shaders out of business. And under the base color, change this to image texture. Go ahead and load in the albedo image texture of the bread, which is right here. And then splitting the viewport here, I'm going to left click and drag from the corner here. Drag it out. Change this to UV image editor. All right, cool. I'm going to change this to textured mode so I can see what's going on. Hitting tab to go into edit mode, A to select everything, U, unwrap, and then select your bread albedo texture. Cool. Now with everything selected, just scale it down with the S key and scale it so that it fits right there on this bread pancake looking thing. All right, cool. Now the big outer circle right here is actually this part of the cupcake that goes around. But you can see that the top of the cupcake, the texture is a little bit stretched and too small. So the reason being is because that's the inner circle. What we're going to do in vertex mode, go into wireframe with the Z key, select the middle vertex right there, and then hit Control plus on your numpad to increase the selection, and one more time. That way you have all these vertices here selected. And now you can see that it's selected this circle, and as I said, it's too small, so we're going to hit S to scale it up. And there we go. Now you can see that the texture is looking a lot nicer on here. Cool. Now, one thing you might be saying, Alex, this does not look like a chocolate cupcake like you showed in the image. All right, a couple things we need to do. I'm just going to move this over here, change this one to rendered view so we can see it in real time. And also, before we go any further, the lighting is absolutely horrible. So selecting the lamp right here, click on Use Nodes, click on Sun, and let's change the strength because right now it looks like we're actually on the sun because it's so bright. I'm going to change that to 3, and now we got a little bit better lighting for now. Selecting back the cupcake, let's come over here. We're going to hit Shift A, add in a texture. image texture and go ahead and open the normal map bread texture. Normal map will fake the lighting so that it looks like it has bumps and crevices and ridges and all that good stuff. We also need to hit Shift A, vector, normal map, and pop that in there. And since this is not a color image, we need to change it from color to non-color data. And now the strength right here, if you want it higher, you can see it gives it more bumps, lower, softer bumps. I'm going to put this at 0.6, maybe. Yeah, 1 or 0.6 or something. I'm going to put it to 0.6. Also, another thing, you can see that it's really shiny. So unless you want a glazed cupcake, which is fine, what we're going to do is also increase the roughness here to about 0.5. You can also feel free to use a texture roughness map to dictate this value. All right, last thing we need to do to actually change this to make it look more like chocolate. Add in a color, RGB curves, pop that right in the middle right there. And then by left clicking and dragging on this line right here, it adds another vector point, I guess. And just bring it to about here and you will see it changes the color. Now you don't want to bring it below this line, otherwise it's going to be more of a purple reddish color. Just bring it right above, and then the further to the right that you bring it, the darker or more chocolatey it will be. And then the further to the left you bring it, the lighter it will be. So I'm going to put it around there, something like that. Depending on how dark you want your chocolate, you can make it however you want. All right, cool. So that's the cupcake. Let's go to the cream at the top. Now, again, keep in mind that a lot of this is going to come together when we do the lighting for the scene and everything. But with the cream selected, it's pretty simple. We're going to add a new shader, change it to principled shader. And now what we want to do is we want to give it the kind of material where the light kind of goes through it and scatters around it, kind of like, you know, like skin or cream. And the best way to do that is with subsurface scattering, which allows for the light to penetrate through the mesh and kind of scatter around inside of it. To do that, just change right here the subsurface scattering from 0 to about 0.3, and you will see right away what happens. The light is penetrates through it, and it's scattered by this color right here, which says subsurface scattering color. Now, obviously, if you want your muffin to look like that, you can. I mean, it looks kind of delicious and artificial, which I guess a muffin is anyways, for the most part, or the cream sometimes. Anyways, back on track. The color, I'm just going to put it all the way up on the brightness, and I'm going to make it a nice kind of beigeish white cream kind of color there. Cool. Now, the other thing that I want to do with this is quite simply, I want it to be a little bit translucent. I'm going to hit Shift A, shader, translucent, not transparent, translucent, shader. Shift A, add a shader, mix shader, pop that in there, and then bring this translucent shader and put it at the top one, and there we go. Now this mix shader is going to dictate how much of the translucent and how much of the principled. All the way at 0, it's 100% translucent. All the way at 1, it's 100% principled. So I'm going to put it at 0.8, which seems to be a magic number sometimes. So it's 80% principled, 20% translucent. Now you can feel free to change the color of the translucency a little bit to give it even more character, but I'll let you do that if you want. I'm going to leave it like this, which is how I made my original scene. Roughness, I'm going to put the roughness so that it's not as shiny or glossy to 0.5. The higher the roughness, the less shiny it will be. The lower, the more shiny. All right, cool. Well, that was pretty fast, and that was easy. Hopefully it was easy. The next thing we're going to do is the cupcake holder thing. This thing has a technical name. I can never remember what it is, but all right, going back to textures.com, you're going to go to the homepage of textures.com, go to paper, decorative, And we're going to select this very first one right here, which kind of looks like, well, in my eyes, it kind of looks like a cupcake paper thing, that how it should be. Go ahead, download the small or medium. I downloaded the small. And then what we're going to do before we add that, just selecting the cupcake holder, we're going to go from object mode to texture paint. Then hitting the T key, you're going to see right here on the tools of the texture paint, it says add paint slot. We're going to click this and just select diffuse color. The resolution is fine. We're going to change the color to white and then click OK. So you can see right here it's added in that texture image that we just created. And what this is going to do is basically going to allow for us to draw where, as you saw in my original image, where the parts of it at the top, we want it to look like it's, you know, not stuck to the cupcake, but kind of like detached. One thing we need to do quickly, I'm going to change this to UV image editor, change this to object mode. Hitting the tab key, we need to, hold on, I'm going to make this more even. We need to unwrap this. Control 1 to go to the back of the cupcake. I'm going to add some seams to this. Alt right click this edge loop. Alt shift right click this bottom one. You should have these vertices selected. Hit Control E, mark seam, and then just hit A to select everything. U, unwrap, and then select the image that was created, which should be named something like Material Diffuse Color, which is just a white picture. Cool. All right, let's go back to texture paint mode. 1 on the numpad to go into front view. Make your color black and put the strength all the way to 1. Also, one quick thing, I'm actually going to go back to object mode with the cupcake holder selected. Shift H to hide everything except for the cupcake holder. And then go back to texture paint mode. All right, cool. So now you can look at images of cupcakes on Google, but the parts that are detached are usually the parts right here, the ridges that are pointing out. Not too much the inset right here. So hitting the F key, you could increase or decrease the radius of your brush. And what we want to do is just go ahead. Don't worry if it goes onto the other parts of the mesh. We'll fix that after. Just go ahead and, you know, paint where you want it to look like it's detached. And then you can also, if you zoom in, your brush will be smaller, so you could do like some smaller ones. I'm going to exaggerate this one a bit just so we could see it just for the tutorial. All right, I'm going to exaggerate that one. I'm going to do one more and then we'll be good. You could go all the way around, or you could just, you know, make the ones where you, the ones that you'll see in the camera view. All right, now selecting back your white color, go ahead and just, you know, white that out right there. Cool. Now, a very important thing, this image, you have to save it. If you don't save it, when you reload your file, it will be gone. Go to image, save as image, and just save it. I'm going to save it as Cupcake Peel 1 because it looks like it's where it's peeling away from the cupcake. All right, back into object mode, Alt H to unhide everything. And I'm just going to reset this like this so we could see it in real time. All right, switching this back to the node editor. This is the image that we just created. Let's move this above here. We'll use that later. And what we're going to do now is pretty simple. So first thing, go to the Vertex Data tab here. Add in a new UV map. And we'll name this Cupcake Peeling, I guess. Peeling. All right, cool. Now, back in the node editor, Shift A, add in an input. Where is it? UV map. From the UV map, we're going to select that UV map. Not the one we just created, but the original one, UV map. So the node setup that we're going to do right now is going to be for the overall cupcake. And then we're going to copy it and use that for just the part that we painted black. For this one, let's first, what we want to do is add in a Shift A, add in texture, image texture right there. We're going to open the image texture that we got from CG Textures. Not the one we made, but the one we downloaded, which is the paper decorative image texture. Connect this to the diffuse, connect this to the vector, and you can see that right here we have that image displaying nicely there. Cool. Now a couple things, and you'll see this being updated in real time because right now it just looks like cardboard paper. It doesn't really look see-through. Let's go ahead and hit Shift A, add in a shader, translucent. Shift A, add in a shader, transparent. And then I'm going to move this a little bit. Connect the image color to the translucent and the transparent. And now we want to mix these two together. So our favorite shader of them all, shader, mix shader. Pop that in here right here. Take the translucent, put it to the top. You could already see what's happening right here. It's looking more translucent. And then this bottom one right here, Shift D, copy that over and pop that one into there like that. Cool. Now, for the values here, we need to change the values quickly, obviously, because right now it's the values aren't correct. But this first one right here, I'm going to change it. If you go all the way to 0 right here, it's more translucent, and all the way at 1, it's more diffused. So I'm going to put it to 0.03 like that. And then this one, all the way to 1, it's more of the, or all the way to 0, it's more of those. All the way to 1, you can see it's transparent. Now, actually on this one, I'm going to put it to 0, which you wouldn't even need the transparent shader since it's at 0 because it's not even taking into effect the transparency. But depending on how your cupcake paper you want it to look, I'm just leaving this here because you could put this very subtly to like 0.1 so that it has a little bit of transparency. But I'm going to leave it at 0 for now, or for this scene. All right, cool. Now, for the next part of it, quite simple. We're just going to box select all of these, Shift D, copy them up here like that. And I'm going to move this one out of the way. Cool. Only thing we have to do here is change this to cupcake peeling. And what we're going to do is we need to mix these two together. So this is the whole cupcake, and this is going to be the part that we painted at the top where it seems like it's peeling off. To mix these two, obviously a mix shader. Let's copy this one, Shift D, place it here, and then take this one, place it at the top like that. All right, cool. Now, what we're going to do with this image texture that we have here is actually we're going to allow it to dictate which parts of it are this bottom node setup and which parts of it are this top node setup. So by taking in the color input right here, we're going to put the color input first into the second to last mix shader, which is this one right here. You can see what's happening here. And then we're going to put it into this factor output right here as well, because right now it's basically at 0, it's all of this node. At 1, it's all of these nodes here. However, with this image, it will basically take the black parts. The black parts will be this node setup right here, and the white parts will be this node setup here. So take the color and put it into the factor here, and you can see exactly what happened there. And then last thing we need to do is increase this factor right here from 0.03. We need to increase that. So you can see if I increase this, you can see that those parts of the cupcake become darker and they look like they are more detached, because when it's completely stuck to the cupcake, it looks more see-through like this. When it's detached, it's not as see-through. So I'm going to put this to 0.3. So now, right now it's a little bit hard to see because, again, the lighting is still terrible. Let's work on the lighting now that we're done with all the texturing. I'm just going to bring this in a bit, change this to 3D view, hit Shift C to recenter my scene and recenter my cursor. Shift A, add a mesh plane. Just going to add a basic floor for now. And then the light, the lamp, going into top view first. I want the light to come in through this direction. So the dotted line of the sun lamp is basically the direction or the position of the sun in the sky. I'm going to put it there, and then in front view, I'm going to give it kind of that angle. I think that looks good right there. That looks sexy. All right, you could already see a little bit more about man, I can't even talk anymore. A little bit more of what we did with the painting. You can see that all these parts that we painted, like right here where I exaggerated a little bit, it looks darker and it's not as transparent because it's taking in that first node setup at the top, and then the rest is taking in that other node setup. So you could already see the effect that it has, which is pretty cool. All right, let's continue with our lighting a little bit because that will definitely help the scene a lot. The next thing I want to do is add in some environmental lighting. Now, for environmental lighting, feel free to use any HDR image that you want. The one I'm going to use is back on textures.com. I'm not sponsored by them, I swear. Look for tree. And then right here, this is the one I'm getting. I just like the colors on this. Of course, you could use an indoor HDR image texture, one of a bakery scene or a room or a living room, which might even be better, but I'm just going to use this for now. The one I downloaded is this one right here. Just download that one, small or medium. I downloaded the small, which is fine. Going back into Blender, go to the World tab and click on Use Nodes. Change it from color to environment texture. Perfect! If that's what you wanted. All right, click on Open and go ahead and find that environment texture, which should be named something like HDRI Sphere. Cool, look at that. Our cupcake is in the middle of nowhere. But what the environmental texture does is basically it's really cool because now your scene is actually being lit by all of these different colors. So the greens, the blues, the brown and everything. And also for the reflections, now any reflections, it will reflect what's around in the scene. So it adds a lot of realism to the lighting and everything. You can definitely increase the strength as well right there, but I'm going to leave it as is. All right, just a couple other lighting things I want to do. I want to hit Shift A, add in a UV sphere, and then just GZ, grab it up. Smooth shading on that. And add in a new shader. We're not going to use the principled shader on this one, amazingly. We're going to click on emission shader, which will basically make it like a light object. I'm going to increase this to 3. So this is kind of like the illusion that there's a light source up here, like a kind of like a chandelier or a light fixture up here. Now, obviously, I'm using an outdoor environment lighting texture, but in my mind, this scene is more like in a bakery or a coffee shop or whatever. I just like the lighting that comes from this. But of course, you could use a coffee shop HDR image. Just I had this one from a previous tutorial, so I'm just using that one. All right, and then the last lighting source I want to add, Shift A, add a mesh plane, rotate RY90. Select this one, Shift select the sphere, Control L, copy the materials. Let me minimize this so that you guys could see a little bit better. And then with this one, the more you scale up an object, the more light it will come from it. I'm just going to hit SY, kind of scale it on the Y axis. In front view, rotate it. And just to get a nice whitewash effect there. Now, of course, I don't want the shadow coming from this. So going to the Object Data tab, all the way down here under Cycle Settings. Let me also maximize my window, just, You know, every inch of computer screen space counts. I'm going to uncheck shadow so that there's no shadow coming from that object. Same thing with this light source, uncheck shadow. All right, let us quickly... let's see, do I want to move this further back? We'll see. Let us quickly add the floor to this scene. I'm going to go back to CG texture. Oh my god, I gotta stop saying CG textures. It's now textures.com, guys. We're going to search for wood. Wait, did I search for wood? Yeah. I'm surprised I remember everything I searched for somehow. Scrolling down, I'm going to use this nice darker wood material here, which I like. Go ahead and download the albedo, the normal map, and the roughness map. And that is the last time we'll be going to textures.com. Don't worry. All right. Now, with the plane selected, can go to UV image editor on this one. Go into texture mode on this one. Select the plane. Let's add in a principled shader. Yes, principled is back. Change it to image texture. Whoa. And go ahead and load in that wood, worn wood albedo texture. Hitting tab, you unwrap, and then just select your wood floor. Cool. I'm going to scale this up so that it scales up the texture. And now put this one back to rendered view. Now, one thing, obviously, it's very shiny. So let's go through this rather quickly. You can feel free to pause it if you need. We're just going to go to node editor with the plane selected, making sure these are in the view. Shift A, add in a shader. No, not shader. Sorry, my bad. Texture, image texture. Go ahead and open up the roughness texture. So wood roughness. And now change this to non-color data as it's not a color map. And input this into the roughness input right there. And this will dictate which parts of the wood are shiny and which parts of it are not shiny or diffused. Shift A, texture, image texture. We're going to open in that normal map texture. Again, non-color data. Bring the color, put it in the normal socket. Shift A, texture, or not texture, not bad, vector, normal map, and bring that in there. And then this will, as you can see right here, gives it a nice little bump effect. So this will dictate the bump. I'm going to put it to 0.5. And there we go. So we got the normal image texture. This one will dictate the roughness, or which parts of it are shiny and which parts of it are not shiny, depending on if it's black or white. As you saw, this was a black and white image. So it takes the black and white values and makes the black and white values shiny or not shiny. And then this one gives us the illusion that there's bumps. All right, cool. I'm going to change this one back to 3D view. Let's position the camera. So I'm going to hit 1 to go into front view. Go into a view that you kind of like. Kind of want a view like that. Hit Control-Alt-0 on the numpad, which will position your camera there. Select your camera and hit G. Middle mouse click allows for you to zoom in and out. And then you could just position the plane and then hit the S key and scale it up. Now, if this image is still showing up in your background, you could add in a wall right here or something so that it doesn't show up, or just position the camera in a good way like that. All right, cool. We're making progress. One of the last parts before we wrap it up, let's create the little chocolate pieces on our cupcake because, you know, that's pretty important. So I'm just going to kind of minimize that. We're going to add a cube down here. Shift A, add mesh cube. Scale it down. Going into edit mode, all you want to do is just grab the vertices and basically make it not look like a square anymore. Basically, That's basically what we're doing. And don't make it too pointy. All right, I guess that's fine. However you want your chocolate piece to look. Cool. Now selecting the cream, let's go ahead and add in a particle system under the particle tab here. New, we're going to change it to hair, and this will add in some hair particles. However, we want objects. Clicking on advanced to give us some more options. Go down here, we're going to click on object and select the cube object, and this will basically make the particles that object instead of hair particles. Cool. Now, up here, the number amount will change the amount of particles or cubes that we have. Right now we have 1,000, so I'm going to change this to like 200. And also you can see that all of these are rotated the exact same way. Under rotation here, let's increase the phase to 1 and the random to 2. Now it gives it a random rotation. And by selecting the original piece, if you scale it up or down, you could scale up or down your pieces. Cool. Last thing to do is add a material to this. I'm going to change this to rendered view. Zoom in so we can kind of see. You could definitely make some white chocolate, which actually looks very tasty. Tasty and sexy. All right. Now, adding a material to this original piece down here. New, you guessed it, principled shader. Is that getting old or not? All right. Now, what I did for my original scene, I actually went to Google and searched chocolate hex color, and I just took in that hex code and put it in here to get the exact color of chocolate. However, here I'm just gonna, pick a color that I think looks like chocolate. Because if you're even one number off, it could look off, so I'd rather get the exact hex code, but you could do that on your own if you want. And then what else I'm going to do, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to change the roughness to 0.5, which will make it not so shiny. So again, roughness at 0 makes them 100% shiny. Roughness at 1 makes it not shiny at all. And there we go. All right, cool. Let me see. Let's see, what else do we need before we do a test render? No, I think, all right, let's do a test render. Again, keep in mind that the rotation of this lamp right here will greatly impact the look and feel of your scene. So just find a good rotation of this. You could hit R once or twice to get a tumble rotation. And these are the original settings of my image that I did, the original image. Now, of course, the lamp might be rotated slightly differently, but these are all the original settings that I had. And now let's do a test render. Going to the render tab, I'm going to increase this to 100%. And make sure to turn on, under the layer tab right here, turn on denoising. Because if you guys have noises in your render, a lot of times, make sure this is on, turn it on, just leave it default. A lot of times we go down here and we go to sampling and increase the render samples to like 1,000 to get all the noise out, because the more samples, the less noise. However, with denoising enabled, you could actually leave it at 128 samples and it will look amazing. So you don't need as many samples anymore as you did way back when. Now I'm just going to hit F12 on my keyboard to do a test render. I'm making sure everything's good. Yeah, let's try it. F12 to do a test render. You can see that at the top right here it says denoised 0 tiles so far. And you can see that there's a lot of noise here. So it's going to start to denoise the tiles in a second or two. And you're going to see the amazing magic that is denoising. And there, you can see right here, look at how much clearer, look at that. Okay, too much zooming. Look at how much clearer it is, though. That looks amazing. This looks like I want to lick this cupcake. And then this one looks kind of sandy and grainy. I don't even want to touch it. So look at that. That looks pretty cool. And you can see where we painted it black. It's not as see-through or transparent and looks good. All right, I'm going to let this render out, and I'll be back once this is rendered. All right, see you soon. All right, so there we have it. That is the render. Now, a couple things obviously to fix. You can see the lighting right here is a little bit too much. It's a little, hold on, let me get out of this view. It's a little too bright right there. So you could either tone this down or just delete it altogether, depending on how you want your scene to look. And then for my original scene, literally the only other thing I did is I duplicated I duplicated the cupcakes, had 2 more in the background. Instead of a flat plane here, I had three different planes, kind of like a wooden floor or a table. So three separate planks of wood, and added in a depth of field with the camera, and that's pretty much all. And yeah, so there you go. I mean, you could go ahead and tweak it a little bit, but that's pretty much how to make this cupcake. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and had a lot of fun doing it, because I had fun making it. Make sure to post your results on BlenderMania3D.com on the forums. I really want to see what kind of scene you created and how your cupcake looks, and what you came up with. So with that, once again, hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to the next tutorial. Make sure to join the contest that's happening on BlenderMania3D.com as well. And I'll see you in the next one. All right, ciao for now. Au revoir. Take care. Bye.